and fostering economic growth. Now, when I talk about entrepreneurs, datas, okay? I'm talking about all the entrepreneurs. Each entrepreneur can create jobs. You employ one person, you've created a job for one person, okay? Now, the theme for 2024 is achieving the SDGs through fostering innovation and economic growth. Was there anyone who already knew about the theme sitting here? I was very happy to see when I Googled what's the theme for this year, and because that really excited me, because even the entrepreneurs are looking at the SDGs. That's something that the world is looking at, and it has the goals like responsible use of resources, climate action. So if every segment of the society, students, teachers, entrepreneurs, politicians, whoever, if everybody focuses on SDGs, I think we will be able to achieve our goals. Correct? And do we achieve goals just by talking about it? We work towards it. And do remember, every action counts. Big or small, every action counts. So what's the theme for 2024? Achieving the SDGs through fostering innovation and economic growth. That's the goal, that's the theme for the Entrepreneur Forum for 2024. All right? Now with me, I have somebody who's 32 years old, is doing something very nice, and his name is Samayesh Khanna, Mr. Samayesh Khanna, and he's wearing a t-shirt which is going to talk about where is he from. So Mr. Samayesh, this is Mr. Samayesh, and what does the t-shirt say? What does it say? There's a little logo here. Just like your uniform, your t-shirt has the logo. It says you are from Prometheus School. Beanley Coffee. I wonder, what does he do? Does he make cold coffee and serve it to people when we go to Beanley Coffee? No? So he's the co-founder of Beanley Coffee. And that's all that I know till now. And I'm also waiting to hear from him about his entrepreneurial journey. All right? Okay, now the only expectation we have from all of you is listen carefully. If you have questions, make a note of it in your mind. At the end, you will have a chance to interact with him. Is that okay? Yes. All right, here we go.
Hi, everybody. I think after the last session, I'm going to be a little better with you guys. Can I sit here? I'm going to sit here and talk to them. So the last session, I was absolutely, totally underprepared. This time, I think I'm a little better prepared to talk to all of you. Sure. Perfect. Perfect. So I'm a little better prepared to talk to all of you than I was to the secondary students before. Secondary, right? Those are the secondary students before this. And like ma'am mentioned, I am building in coffee as a category. I'm assuming a lot of you do not have it at home. I'm hoping a lot of you do not have it at home yet. Do you have coffee? Oh. Clearly, I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. You're all potential customers now. I view you all with this really with a very capitalist mindset, and I'm looking at you all as potential customers who will grow into being much larger customers. So, but yes, off to start with what we are building at Beanley, and clearly we are building for you as a category, and for you as students, and for you as our largest cohort of consumption in the next few years. So it is you who we are trying to inspire to being larger coffee drinkers. Actually, do any of you have tea at home also? Oh, that's a... How many of you have tea versus how many of you have coffee? Coffee versus tea, one by one. Coffee and tea. I think it's this side of the room that's having all the tea, and it's this side of the room that's having all the coffee. Are you guys older? Is this side is this side older? They're older? Younger? Oh, and the younger ones are having more coffee than these guys. Maybe the teachers are doing something and they're getting them to have coffee. So we have a product for the younger generations also. We build a product called Dibs, which is an edible coffee snack. Yeah, have you had it? I'm so glad. So it's an edible coffee snack which we actually built only for kids. I had assumed that a lot of your parents would have stopped you from having coffee, but I didn't want to deprive you of any of that taste of coffee. So our first product that we built for this kids market was an edible coffee snack. And it's called Dibs. You can go back and tell your mom to buy you one. And next week, I promise you, I'm going to send enough for all of this batch to have. So then you can ask ma'am to get you some Dibs whenever you're allowed to indulge at school. I will. I promise next week I will, at least for this set of the audience. You have Dibs in your house. That's so sweet. I'm so glad to hear that. Who else has Dibs in their house? Oh, wow. Oh, that's a larger... Yeah. You all have Dibs. Great, great. Okay, how much do all of us know about entrepreneurship, and how many of you out here want to be entrepreneurs? You also want to be an entrepreneur?
All right, I think all of you were talking when he asked his first question. So I think let's get out of the Dibs excitement of eating that coffee snack, which we will when he sends it. And right now, he began with his first question, which is, how many of you know about what entrepreneurship is? And his second question was, who wants to be an entrepreneur? And now he's going to take over. So let's be good audience, good listeners, okay?
What is entrepreneurship to any one of you? Yeah, please.
You want to open a company when you are ready for it.
Very good. And any other people here? Any other children here who think that you could?
Entrepreneurship is when we open a business of our own and we solve problems, and sometimes it's a disaster, but the thing is that you have tried it. Yeah. Thanks to prophets.
Yeah, I think she's answered it very well, and surprisingly better than the secondary students also. Answered it better than the secondary students. Do you know I built a disaster also once? It's one of those things that I don't very proudly talk about. At least till now, I haven't very proudly spoken about. But it's something that I wish you all know, that at some point in life, you might build a disaster, but grow out of it. I grew out of building a disaster into building hopefully something that's going to be much bigger than what it is today, and it seems like it's not as much of a disaster. So it's very, very important to learn that every entrepreneur out there builds a disaster. Do you want to know about the disaster story, about how I built a disaster first? Okay, great. Great. So the first disaster that I built was, I was an engineer. And when I was in school, I was growing up to be a very passionate photographer. My parents loved what I was doing. But at some point in the 11th or the 12th, I had an argument with my parents, and surprisingly, the argument was I also wanted to be a science student, but my parents wanted me to pursue commerce or art, which is something which is so unlike what most students go through. I said I'm going to pursue science, and which is where I started losing touch with a little bit with myself, and started pursuing science as one of those as a subject that I was doing in school. After that, I was obsessed by being an engineer. My parents kept telling me, "Don't be an engineer, do something else." Where I went and became an engineer, worked as an engineer. So the disaster, why the disaster really started for me, I feel, was I lost touch with what my heart really wanted, and I wasn't sure enough to follow my heart. I was passionate about what I was doing, worked as an engineer for 3-4 years, but I was constantly passionate about design, constantly passionate about building. And that first disaster was I started to build a co-working space. How many of you know what a co-working space is? Great. So I'll answer that for you so that you all don't have to. Co-working spaces, what we were doing was we were bringing offices into a common area and saying we would rent out offices. What I didn't realize at that time was that this would require a lot of money, and it was something that I would have to build on the back of lots and lots of money. That was the beginning of my disaster, and 1.5 years later, I put a lot of effort into it. I put a lot of heart, a lot of sweat into it. But when we weren't making money, when we were putting in own money and losing money, we realized that this was a disaster and we gave it up. Luckily for us, at that time, we had not taken anybody else's money. So we came out of disaster very easily. So my very fast learning for you all is when you're building your first company, one, you have to be prepared to go through disaster. The second bit being, your disaster should be something that you should be capable of getting out of. As much as people will tell you out here that disaster can be glamorous, disaster is only something that is glamorous if you're able to get out of it. If you don't get out of disaster, disaster can be really scary. I don't mean to scare any of you from entrepreneurship, because at the end of it, at the end of all these lows and at the end of all these disasters, there is the possibility of building something that you love. Do you all know what you love and what you all want to build when you grow up? You don't want to build anything.
I also want to ask Mr. Samayesh, he spoke about the disaster that he built, but let's hear about the success story of Beanly as well. When it started, how it started, from what scale to what scale it is now. I think let's hear that success story as well.
Absolutely, I'm coming to exactly that. So, like most of you here, some of you don't know what you want to do and what you love and what you wanted to build. But after I built that disaster, I went through that phase where I did not know what I loved, what I wanted to do. But the one constant that carried on with me was that I wanted to build, and I wanted to build again. And I think for me, it was out of a reason to prove again. So you have to find your reason. Why are you building? What are you building? And some of you want to be footballers, like your secondary seniors. There was a footballer there also. Clearly, the school is doing something very right in gearing you to be passionate about sports and football. Find your reason to build. Find your reason to do what you're doing. So then I found my reason. How did I find my reason is a very interesting story also. So you want to know about the story? Yeah, I'm telling you now. So when I used to keep thinking, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? I was usually having a cup of coffee. So it was that told me that I really loved this one beverage and I wanted to build around it. So find that one thing that you really love, and if you really love football, play football and play it really well. If you can play really well, you will be a bigger entrepreneur. I told your secondary students, it's one of the best things to do if you find very early in life what you love and follow it. If you find what you love and you're sure about it, follow it. Do it all day. As much as all your teachers will tell you not to play football all day, play football all day if you have to. You don't? That's great. So play football all day. If you find coffee as something that you like, if you find Coke as something that you like, if you find something that you eat, if you like computers, try and build in that. I found coffee as something that I like, and I bought one bag. So then what drove me to build, I was looking for that next product. Then we call it reverse engineering. Does anybody know reverse engineering? Okay. Basically, reverse engineering is what we used to love doing as kids, destroying products and finding out. I don't know how many of you do it. I think all kids do it, right? They destroy things. Do you all break everything at home? Do you all open a remote? Do you all open a phone, see what's inside? Yeah? You all do that? Yeah? Do you all find things that you want to build out of them? I'm sure they do, right? They're in their robotic labs, they do that. Yeah? So we found one coffee product. Yeah, we found one coffee product and then we broke it down.
All right, something very interesting is coming up in his story. All ears, please.
So we broke the coffee product down. Then what did we find inside? We found a coffee bag. After we found a coffee bag, we saw the protective plastic covering around it. Then we went in deep into what was there on the plastic covering. Why was the coffee product like that? Why was nobody building in India like that? How could we make it? That was where Beanly really started from. It was one small product that drove and inspired us to build for everybody, and then we found the reason to do it. That is another very big reason that we started building this product, because we found a reason. The reason was, when you have coffee every day, when you have an X brand of instant coffee, let's say, at home, half of us did not know that 70% of that product does not have coffee in it. When we broke that product down, when we were children, we became children, as we said, when we were breaking those products down, we understood that this does not have coffee. And we wanted to build for all of you. We wanted to say that India would have coffee. That is where that is where our learning came from. That is where we built our first product. Then what did we do next? Our next goal was, how do we start making money? Because we were now spending money. We were spending money on making a machine. We were spending money on renting an office. So we had to start making money. Do you all understand that is the second most important thing, or the first most important thing of a business? How do you make money? Do you want to ask me something? Say something. Yes. Yes. Some of the grown-ups are not that smart nowadays. So, yeah, so that's a great way to start a business. So, everybody wants to say something. We'll ask you.
Let's listen to his story first, and then we can share our anecdotes and ask questions. Is that okay? All right.
Yeah. So the second thing about building a business, which you all must learn, is making money. The first thing is the reason to do it. The second thing is how you make money. What did we do second? We made a coffee bag. Now we had to sell it to everybody. Now how do you sell to everybody? Does anybody know how we sell to everybody? Yeah? Bilkul, absolutely right. Advertisement. And getting it to reach you. Reach reach can be via advertisement. Reach can be via absolutely. So we were now telling so now we are telling the qualities, the good qualities of our coffee. We are telling the good qualities of our coffee to the customers. Now, how do I reach all of you all? How do I find all of you all? None of them use phones, right? Right. You use phones? Yeah. Sure. So social media, yes. Social media is where we started knowing and started reaching out to all of you. That became the cheapest way to reach out to everybody. So you increase your reach, then the second mode is you increase where your product is lying. Right? Once you increase where your product is lying, you increase your reach and you increase it at the smallest cost. That makes the smartest way of putting your product out there. Now you are making money. Now what do you do? What is the third step of business? The third step of business is finding your costs. Yeah, what are your costs? All your costs. Find all your costs. Reduce all your costs.
So like in our park there was like babies who like the kids were like very bored and had nothing to do like except for the funny things over there. So we built a camp over there. And on Friday we costed that the money will be 15 rupees, you have to bring it. But as per it became a big disaster that we all started to fighting that we want to be this, we want to be that, but there was not enough time, so it became a big disaster.
Got it. So later, second thing in life, third thing in business, what you are doing is reducing your costs now. Okay? We are coming back to the topic. We'll talk about your disaster later. But we have to reduce cost of business. All costs in business we'll reduce now. What is my cost in business? It is where my office is, where my team is. Those are costs, right? But you can't reduce your team. You can't reduce team because that is what builds you. That is what all of us build for. That is how we highlight the quality of our business, right? I think all of them have lost me here now. Yeah, I think all of them have lost me now. But so this is our third principle of business is reducing costs, right? I think we've lost everybody here. But
We can build on it. What does reducing cost mean? So if you were able to make something in 10 rupees, you find ways to reduce your production cost, which is very easily doable. But what is very important is that you don't lose on the quality, right?
Absolutely.
You don't, while maintaining the same quality, how is it that you bring down your production cost is the third principle that he's talking about.
Yes.
Okay. So from there you moved on to?
Costs, reducing costs. Reducing costs, everybody agrees we have to reduce costs to make money? Great. Great. So once we have you all in agreement, we'll move on to the next. So we're reducing costs to make money. At the same time, what are we not sacrificing? Quality.
Quality.
Ma'am said we are not going to sacrifice quality. Okay, great. I think we're going to go back to storytelling.
Yes, I think they're more interested in knowing from where it started, which you started talking about, that you were drinking coffee every time you were looking at the idea. What happened next? I think how is it that you met your co-founder? From where is it that the company started, in what year?
Okay.
Should I ask him questions? Does that work? Okay, so I'm going to ask Mr. Samayesh that when was it first that this idea came to your mind? How many years back?
So 2018 is when we first thought about building a coffee brand. And it was me and my friend. Like I told you, we all used to have coffee all the time. We were very, very passionate about having and drinking good coffee, which is where we started building Beanly. Then
So
we-
he did tell you about that story of looking inside a coffee product and from where the idea came. So 2018 was the first when he thought of it. When is it that Beanly Coffee came into existence?
2019 in January, Beanly came into existence. We started selling for the first time online at the lowest cost possible because online was the lowest cost to us, right? After 2019, we all started making coffee for other companies because other companies had identified that we could be building coffee for them. We were making coffee for companies like Blue Tokai, Third Wave, Starbucks, Tim Hortons. Anybody you knew it in coffee was making coffee with us. So that's what we were doing in 2019.
Okay, so when you first started selling online, how many days it took you to get your first order?
We had our first order on our first day of business.
Wow. So the first day of opening, they had their first order online. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now I'll run you through interesting stories about how we got our first order. You know, me and Rahul, when we went out to build Beanly, we went to plantations in the south. We had a really miserable story also once where we went in to farmers. Nobody would give us crop, nobody would give us coffee. So we would go to farmers, from farmer to farmer in Chikmagalur. We went down to the plantations one day, reached at 4 a.m. in the morning. Once we reached there at 4 a.m. in the morning, we realized that we had been locked out of, we were living with a farmer at that time. We had been locked out of the farm at 4 a.m. in the morning. And we actually slept in the plantation at that point with a lot of insects and all outside. It wasn't the most terrible thing because we had a small porch to sleep in, but that it was one of the most fun trips that we both did. We were young kids. We went out to the plantation, went sourced coffee, got up in the morning, reached the plantation, did all we did all sorts of coffee pickings. We went through coffee process, how to pick the plant, how to identify what was happening in the soil, where were the moisture levels created. But this is primarily because we had studied coffee, and by the end of our day, we were doing all sorts of things with coffee except for drinking them. We were drinking coffee, which was the biggest pain of that day. That by the end of the day, we didn't have even a single cup of coffee, and we were desperate to have coffee by the end of the evening. And our largest pain point came later in that evening when we asked the plantation for coffee. And the first cup that they got to us was a cup of instant coffee. And that is where we realized this was a very, very real world problem now. I'm in a coffee plantation and I'm not being able to have coffee. So as she slept that day without having coffee, despite being up since 4 in the morning. So some of the most fun moments of building at that time.
Right. Do you want to know where is the place where he makes coffee? Do you call it a coffee plant, or you call it a factory, or you call it a unit? What is it you call it as?
We call it a factory. It's in Ghitorni, and I will be happy to have all of you there to see what the factory.
Ghitorni is doable for us, actually.
Yeah, you must come. We'll be happy to show them how we make coffee there, how we make the bags, how it goes into the machine, how the coffee is packed, what is it that happens around the laminate to protect the coffee, how do we pack in zero oxygen, what all happens. We'll be happy to take them through all of that.
Great. Does that sound interesting? All right. So maybe we can plan that field trip. Yeah, we can plan that. And I will plan this with him.
Merolia, it's easy.
So they want to know how many people are there in your factory.
We have 40 people in the factory now.
So 40 people working in the factory. And when you first started this, how many people were working then?
It was the two of us.
Just the two of you making
Just the two of
coffee?
you.
And then what happened? The next stage had how many people in the company?
I think our next stage came in 6 to 8 months where we had 6 more factory staff working with us. We had 6 people who were working, but me and Rahul were also working in the factory at that point.
Okay.
We would work. Most of our machines back in the day were manual, so it wasn't all that glorious back in the day when we were building. So whenever an order would come from a very big coffee company, we We both were working with the factory. We were working till 4 or 5 in the morning, making 10,000 bags. So 10,000
Wow.
bags of coffee were being sealed. Every bag passed by us. This is the harsh reality. And sometimes when we see anybody in office who doesn't want to do this, usually they would be a lot younger than us. Uh, it's obviously painful, so it's very important for all of you all to know also that everything that you build will be built with a lot of pain. It will be built one step at a time. But
Without hard work, anything's possible? Only dreams are possible. Yes, there is something possible without hard work, and that is called dreams. You can dream as much, but if you want your dreams to make it happen, you have to work towards your dreams. Right? And this is exactly what he's talking about. He had a dream, he had no people to be a part of his dream. So he and his friend, they were doing it all by themselves. So don't think if you don't have a fancy place or a lot of money or, you just have to have the right idea and the right attitude to work for it.
And hard work is fun. Trust me, hard work is fun. Especially when you look at it later, hard work is the
Definitely.
most fun that you would have had in your life.
Right.
When you look back, hard work is the most fun.
I also want to know, like Starbucks and all, they have different coffee places where people go and drink Starbucks coffee, and that restaurant's called Starbucks, like Tim Hortons. It's a coffee brand, but that place, and they serve other things also. Does Bindi also have something like this, or is Bindi looking at something like this?
Beanly has just opened its first store in Two Horizon in Gurgaon. So again, that's also somewhere where you all should come.
Lovely.
We have our first store is like a small amphitheater. So please come whenever you want your offsites.
So where is it in Gurgaon?
Two Horizon Center, Gurgaon.
Two Horizon, okay, that's... Yeah, okay. All right, so Bindi already has a store like Starbucks, and maybe they open out more. Is that your plan?
It is our plan.
Okay. So I was reading about Beanly Coffee, and I read that you got your first round of funding somewhere in
21.
and in 21, yes.
21.
So do you know what funding is? What is funding? Who can explain me? Raise it. Yes, please. Yes.
Funding is basically when a company gets an investor and then they put money in the company.
So what does that investor get in that company? So Beanly got money which they needed. Why was the person interested in putting money? Why
Because
were the
they-
investors interested in putting money?
Because they saw that the company had potential.
The company had potential. Okay. And what happens when investors think the company is going to do great, but the company doesn't do great? What happens then?
Then the investors leave the company.
Okay, all right. So that didn't happen with the Bindi, and they got their first round of funding in 2021. Okay, so did you need more funds after that as well?
We haven't really raised more funds after that. We've been profitable as a company, but yeah, we're actively now. Now we are raising, and I think it should be out soon that we would have raised that capital. This should be something that you'll hear of once you hear of it in the next month or so. But yeah.
We
No.
just read. We were sitting on the sofa reading it.
That was from 2021.
No, that's an old story that we were reading. Yeah,
No, it's
yeah,
not.
that's an old
It's
one.
not out yet. It shouldn't
So
be out yet.
how many investors does Bindi have?
We have totally 3 investors, but 2 large investors. One is a small investor. We have, and I wish investors left the company when the company doesn't do well, but they really don't. They really don't do leave.
Right. All right. I think it's time to take some student questions, unless you have something else
No,
to
I'm
add.
happy to
All
take
right.
questions.
So I will ensure that I
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
up one from at least each grade. Okay. So how about we begin with you first?
So what were So what were the tips to make your company famous and people coming? So one is advertisement and the 2 other tricks.
So she said, how is it that you made your company famous? One was you used the trick of advertisement so that people get to know about it. What were the other things that you followed to make Beanly famous? Is that your question?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think there are many ways to make your company famous. I would broadly categorize them into two things: do something right or do something really wrong. You'll market yourself anyway. We've chosen to do something right and market it that way. But also, the company becomes famous when you actively start marketing it. Sometimes your marketing goal is not only to be famous; it is also to do more than just be famous. And generally, if you will ever build a company, don't build it to make it famous. Build it so that you market it, so that you get more business. In turn, the fame will follow. The fame will always follow.
Yes, your first goal should not be to get that fame. It should be first to make money, to sell more products, to make to make your company do well. Shrutika, you've been raising your hand. Darling, what's your question?
For how long has Beanly been opened?
Okay.
Got it. The store? It's been...
The store or the company, Shrutika?
Company.
Okay.
Company has been open since 2019. Our store is in its second month of operation, so we've just finished second month there.
Miss Mukti, can we have somebody from the other side now, please? Somebody who's not got a turn to speak.
So once there was a fair in our society. It was a Diwali fair. There we had random things at home. So like my friends got her bracelets, I got my scrunchies, some food which we made at home. And then after that we got so much money, like more than 1,000, because we had a less rate and we had so much stuff.
Lovely, Myra. Thank you for sharing this experience that you tried to do something to earn that money and you made something. So, but do you have any questions from Mr. Samayesh? Yes.
So one time I was selling lemonade for 10 rupees. And there were more than 30 people, so it was a disaster. I need to run back all the way inside every time to get more lemonade.
Great.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. I was talking to. You've got his question?
Story. He was telling a story, I think.
You were telling a story? Okay.
Yeah.
Stories, we listen to it in the class. One last question. If there is anyone who has a question. Yes, darling. Okay, stop. Zorawar, sit down. We don't shout out like that. The one in blue, yes.
How many flavors of coffee do you have? Like, how many types?
We have 3 different types of coffees. And one of our type of coffee has 7 different flavors. And the other coffees have two very distinct flavors. So we have a hot brew, which is freshly brewed coffee. We have instant coffees where we have 7 different types of flavors. And then we have pour over bags, which also have 2 different types of flavors.
All right, we'd said last question because I'm looking at the time. If there are more questions, we still have his contact. I can send it to him. I think he's been very nice to offer that we can even go and see their factory in that's somewhere close to that Gurgaon side, Mehrauli side. We can organize a field trip. We'll try and link it to one of the units. And then he's also told you about a product that children can eat. You know about it already. And I wish we had time so that all your queries and questions could be addressed. But we are running out of time now. It's time for you to be back to your classrooms. And if there are burning questions, share it with your teachers. We'll mail it to him. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay.
Did you feel that you've taken a wrong decision? And if yes, what motivated you? Because we have a lot of young entrepreneurs here. Your way of coping with the failure, how can they, what tips will you give?
I think I would be lying if at any point I said that we never thought that we'd taken a wrong decision. Especially when my first startup failed, I don't know what reason I had to keep continuing into this, but a very large part of that reason was I didn't have anywhere else to go to. I had quit my job. I had been out of a formal corporate career for 2 years. So the only way was to build again. Luckily, while I've been building Beanly, there have been moments where we've had lows, but I've been so driven to build the brand that that the goal has become beyond, that the goal has today gone beyond just money, and that drives me enough to build what I'm building today. It started with money as a goal, and then you realize later, I said this when I was talking to the other kids before this, that the goal becomes so much bigger than money that you don't, money becomes the smallest aspect of it. You start with that as one reason, and later you realize that now the brand owns you, and you're building, and I'm actually enslaved to what I'm doing today, to a point that I would do it without the money. Yes, please. It was very difficult. Raising money for the first time, once you've come in from failure, is also tough. Second, if you don't have a lot of credibility, I was a young kid, I didn't have a lot of credibility back then. Raising money back then was difficult. And it's a constant process. You're constantly raising. Once you're an entrepreneur, once you're a founder, this becomes like raw material, especially the category that we operate in. This is like raw material to us. You're constantly raising. And I'm not, clearly, I think a lot of you would have understood, I'm not someone who comes from a finance background. I was more a photographer when I was in school. So finance was very far from me. I didn't want to do commerce primarily because I didn't understand numbers. But it becomes so much second nature to you that it's all I do, it's all I think all day sometimes, because money is what drives this business.
Mehul, you can have a conversation with him. I have to disperse the students. Sorry. That's why to the students also I said last question. All right, students, it's time to say a big thank you to Mr. Samayesh Khanna.
Thank you.
Will we all remember the name of his coffee? What is it? Beanly coffee, right. Okay. Yes, I'm so glad that you asked such meaningful questions, and we're happy to hear about his journey, how he started, what he's doing now. And it's time to say thank you to him and bye-bye to him. Of course, he's going with us for lunch, but Mr. Gaurav